Prime Minister Modi has concluded his two-day visit to Russia. India and Russia have clinched a number of deals from defense to energy cooperation to infrastructure. Prime Minister Modi has also been conferred with the highest civilian honor by the government of Russia. But it also happened to be on the same day as one of the biggest children's hospitals in Ukraine was attacked. Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, tweeted saying that it was sad to see the leader of the world's largest democracy hugging the world's most bloody criminal, in reference to Putin. Congress's Jairam Ramesh has echoed that, saying that the Vishwaguru turned Vishwabandhu must answer about all that boast about war rukwadi. Now, while the timing of the visit by the Prime Minister and the attack on the children's hospital by Russian forces may be a mere coincidence, how does India walk this diplomatic tightrope?
मैं ये बिना संकोच कह सकता हूं कि इन 25 साल की हमारी इस गहन यात्रा के मुख्य सूत्रधार आप रहे हैं और मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि और पिछले अनुभव से मैं कह सकता हूं कि आने वाला भी हमारा कार्यकाल हमारे संबंधों को और गहरा बनाएगा और घनिष्ठ बनाएगा और हम नए नए अचीवमेंट को लेकर के आगे बढ़ेंगे।
रूस के सर्वोच्च अवार्ड से सम्मानित करने के लिए मैं हृदय से आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
जब मासूम बच्चों की कत्ल होती है, मासूम बच्चों को मरते हुए देखते हैं, तब हृदय छलनी हो जाता है। हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए शांति सर्वाधिक आवश्यक है, लेकिन मैं ये भी जानता हूं कि युद्ध के मैदान में समाधान संभव नहीं होता।
All right, we're now joined by Dr. Roxanne Zigon. He's a geopolitical analyst joining us live from Moscow. Alexander Merichko is the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Ukraine. He's now joining us from Kiev. Manjeev Singh Puri, former diplomat, is joining us. RP Singh of the BJP and Charan Singh Sapra of the Congress also joining us. Charan Singh Sapra, you know, the war is a reality. It's a reality that's been going on for the better part of the last 2 years now. Prime Minister Modi, when he met President Putin some years ago, he said this is not the era of war. Today, while he met President Putin, openly in front of him, he said that the solution to all our problems cannot be found at the battlefield. He said we held open talks on Ukraine. War hurts all of humanity, and particularly when children are killed, it hurts all of us. What more do you expect a visiting Prime Minister to tell the Russian president? Because your leaders, Mr. Jairam Ramesh including, saying that this was wrong timing, that Prime Minister should not have gone at this time. How can he second guess the timing of when Russia is going to attack a children's hospital?
See, Zaka, let me tell you that India-Russia partnership is, time-tested, and repeated government, whosoever might be the Prime Minister, they have taken a similar stand. And India has always been cozy towards Russia because of various reasons. It is a trusted friend of India. It is the world's richest country in terms of natural resources and various other reasons. As far as timing, the issue of timing you are saying, let me make it little clear that Prime Minister could have selected a better timing, because from today 9 July to 11 July, there is a NATO conference going on in United States, and the US President is hosting more than 32 countries over there, and NATO is very much against Russia's war on Ukraine. And to add on to it, unfortunately, yesterday there was a bombing of the hospital, and unfortunately many civilians, including the children, have died. And there was a snub from Zelensky, who you rightly said, who mentioned that world's largest democracy hugs bloody criminal. Does the BJP or Prime Minister have an answer to that? That is what Mr. Jairam Ramesh wanted to say.
Okay,
And
let me ask
secondly,
RP Singh.
the
RP Singh,
way
this is
Prime
what
Minister
Vladimir
has-
Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, tweeted. A Russian-made missile struck the largest children's hospital in Ukraine, targeting young cancer patients. Many were buried under the rubble. It's a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts to see the leader of the world's largest democracy hug the world's most bloody criminal in Moscow on such a day. How do you respond to that?
Dhaka is the first instance which has happened in last 2 years. Not. There are many attacks which have happened between the two countries. Russia has also attacked Ukraine, and Ukraine has also done damage to countries are fighting each other. So timing can't be an issue, because had it been that there was peace otherwise and Prime Minister visited and the war started, and then the issue would have been that. I mean, it's an ongoing war which is happening. Prime Minister is trying to work out a solution to the thing, to the total war as such, and it has tried to balance out the things between the two parts of the world. And he attends the G7 also, he attends the G20 also, and takes that message across, and then sent that message across. And then he was the only one who was able to tell the Premier Putin that war is not a solution. But as Congress is, they have to play politics into everything. I mean, shocking is that they enjoy playing politics into the international affair. I mean, I'm sorry to say that they're still into that election mode. They think probably elections are still on, and they are into that mode.
Zaka, I will have to answer him, Zaka.
No, one second. Let him finish. One second.
सर सिंह साहब थोड़ा सा इंतजार करिए, थोड़ा आपका टाइम आएगा, आप बोलिएगा ना सर, आपने बहुत साल
Yes,
रिलेशनशिप रखी है.
बोलिए ना.
So India has their own right to work out the relationship with Russia and the Western world also, and then India has done that very well, keeping India's interest in mind, not the Russian or the Western interest in mind. Whatever is good for us, we have done that, and then we'll keep doing that. And
Okay.
war is the solution that has been conveyed to Putin and also to the other part of the world.
So let me ask Dr. Zigon, how does Russia possibly justify, at a time when Russia is running out of friends, there are a handful of countries, leaders who have visited Moscow in the last 2 years since this war began, on a day when the Indian Prime Minister is arriving to Moscow to have the largest children's hospital in Ukraine bombed. More importantly than that, just this past month, you had as many as 80 countries from around the world attend a peace summit in Switzerland. India also attended that peace summit in Switzerland. And the final declaration there said that Russia must stop this war forthwith because it goes against the UN Charter. Of course, India did not sign that final declaration, but it was very much a participant in that summit. The onus today is on Russia to end the war. And on the day that the Prime Minister is there, how does one explain the largest children's hospital in Ukraine being targeted? What fault of those children? Dr. Zigon.
Thank you for this important question. First of all, let me clarify the notions here. Russia has never been willing to start a war. Russia has been forced to react on the geopolitical situation that has been taking place for more than 8 years in the regions which were aligned to Russia and were represented by the Russian citizens. And India is full of awareness, being a country that has been constantly throughout its history experiencing a high level of extremism and nationalism, how to deal and how to demonstrate a masterhood in peacemaking. Therefore, Russia has been just reacting on a disbalance of the geopolitical interest and crashing its interest from the side of the West. Second of all, I've been authored an article a few weeks before the peace conference in Switzerland has taken place, and I have clearly indicated that it's absolutely impossible, no matter how much countries would be invited, to sit around the table and discuss the peacemaking process without inviting Russia. And India has been demonstrated a very important step, because India didn't sign a communique, at the end of this peace conference, in order to demonstrate its support and geopolitical awareness that it's important to follow for the balance. No one in the world is willing to start a war. it's important to think how to end it, in which way. And India and Russia are just the unique forces from the geopolitical point of view that are capable and have all the instruments, diplomatic,
No, but
political.
when will Moscow end this war, Dr. Zigon? It's been going on for 2.5 years now, and the onus is clearly
Yes.
on Moscow. I mean, if whatever the objective was when this war began, has that objective been attained? And if it has, then why is this war still going on?
Clearly, the president of Russia and political establishment in Russia and Russian society is willing to see the peacemaking process not just on the condition of the West, but based on the respect of the national interest of Russia. This is very important. This is two ways a process. So it's not only depending on Russia, it's also clearly said depending on the West, on the collective West.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Merejko. Even as Prime Minister Modi has concluded his 2-day visit to Moscow, there is going to be a NATO conference that will begin in Washington later tonight. And it's clear that NATO has been backing Ukraine with weapons, tens of billions of dollars of weapons. The latest being the US Congress passing about, I think, $60 billion worth of weapons. It was hanging in the balance for a long time. It's very clear that on the battlefield, after 2.5 years of this war, that Ukraine has lost control of anywhere between 15 to 25% of its territory. It doesn't seem plausible in the near future that that territory can be retrieved. And it doesn't seem, at this point of time at least, that Russia can be pushed back to its boundaries, as it were, before this war began in February of 2022. Should Ukraine concede that, look, this is what the situation is, NATO partners are running out of funds and running out of patience perhaps, Ukraine is running out of weapons, and therefore the only plausible solution to this war is to go back to the negotiating table and find a ceasefire?
Well, first of all, let me express our deepest and the most sincere gratitude to Indian people and to the Indian Prime Minister for participating in the Global Peace Summit. It was extremely important, and India can play a crucial role in bringing peace to the world and to Europe. We are grateful for that. As for your question, we will never run out our will and determination to continue to struggle to defend our homes and our families against genocidal empire. And we have already achieved certain progress because we managed to liberate 50% of the territories which had been previously occupied by Russian troops since February 2022. And to me, India can be very helpful to bring peace in a sense that we desperately need peace based on the UN Charter and on the principles of international law. And we distinguish it from the appeasement of the aggressor. The peace, the true, just peace, should be based only on principles of international law, which were mentioned today by the Prime Minister of India. Such principles as territorial integrity, sovereignty, and the non-use of force. And I hope India is also for this peace.
But who is able to enforce
which will help Ukraine to restore territorial integrity.
Mr. Merejko, who is able to enforce those principles? You talk about territorial integrity, sovereignty. The Russian view is there was creeping encroachment of NATO right up to its borders. And the Russian worldview is that all of these parts in the Donetsk, which they have annexed or invaded, are all part of the former Russian Empire. Who is going to enforce these rules? Even the United States and NATO don't seem to be able to enforce the rules that you have just outlined.
The answer is very simple. We together, all democratic countries, including the biggest democracy in the world, you can contribute to restoring territorial integrity and peace. And all other countries, because we have the aggressor and we have victim of the aggression. And we need to help the victim of the aggression and to punish the aggressor.
Okay.
It's that simple. It's requirement of international law.
Let me ask Mr. Manjeev Singh
do
Puri, as a former diplomat, and you've seen many ups and downs in the relationship between India and Russia, and of course in the last 20-25 years in the relationship between India and the United States. This whole thing that has now become a political football, with the Congress's chief spokesperson saying that Vishwa Guru, who's become Vishwa Bandhu, should ensure that the war stops, and the Prime Minister landing up in Moscow on the same day that the Children's Hospital was attacked. That is insensitive. India at one point of time, Mr. Puri, and please enlighten our viewers, India has done business with America when at the height of the Vietnam War. Mrs. Gandhi met with President Nixon at the height of the unpopularity of the Vietnam War. India has done business with George Bush when America invaded Iraq without any UN Security Council resolution or any kind of mandate from the UN Security Council. It was an invasion of that country. India still had very, very close ties with George W. Bush. So if it's kosher on that side, it should be kosher on this side too.
Zaga, absolutely. Look, India has followed, in the past, it was the policy of non-alignment. We were equidistant. We thought that everybody tries to resolve issues of contestation through peace, through dialogue, and through diplomacy. Today, we call ourselves multi-aligned. We have close relationships with the West. Let's not forget, the Prime Minister, immediately after his swearing in, went for the G7 summit, where he met the Western leaders and he met President Zelensky. And now he's gone to Russia. Now, this timing business, we can talk about it, but we have our budget session out here. And, at any particular point, one will say, those who need to say that the timing will never be perfect. But there's a war on. We need to sort of understand this particular aspect. And that's important. Let me just make one point. As a country which is multi-aligned, which aligns itself for A, global good, and B, for what is in our interest, what is the point that we have made in terms of today's statement that the battlefield is not the place to sort things out? The message is, of course, to the Russians, but it's also to the Ukrainians and their friends on the other side. Look, the Switzerland conference, the Russians weren't invited. Now, there may be good reasons for it, but you yourself clearly mentioned that there was a declaration, but India, Brazil, and several other countries from the global south did not sign that. They were participants. They said their view. The world needs to look at dialogue much more seriously. But yes, there are contestations between countries. This happens. But our perspective always has been that let's push for peace. Let's push for dialogue. That's important because that's good for the world. And I must say, of course, it's good for us. How has this war been of any benefit to us? A peaceful situation, especially after what we went through for COVID, that's the kind of thing that we would have ideally liked. But we must make our point that the world must come together, talk, no matter how difficult.
Let me ask Charan Singh Sapra, if the import of what the Congress Party's accusation against Mr. Modi for going to Moscow even as this war is raging on and Children's Hospital has been targeted, the moot point is that you should not do business with strong-armed dictators who, as you say, are at the head of a genocide. India has done business in the past with Saddam Hussein. India has done business in the past with Idi Amin, with Muammar Gaddafi. These were by no means lily-white souls. So if India could have, India has done business with the junta in the neighborhood in Myanmar. So, if India could have diplomatic ties with all of these folks that I just mentioned, why not with Vladimir Putin? He's an elected leader of Russia. He's been in the center of Russian politics for the last 20 years. What's wrong? And what's wrong in India looking out for its own interests? So if it means buying cheap Russian oil, then so be it. Mr. Sapra.
See, Zaka, it's not about not doing business with Russia. We have been doing continuous business with Russia. In various situations, India has been doing business with Russia as well as America. You have already explained that. We are not against that. But the issue is the way Prime Minister has tried to, politicize the entire thing. Now, BJP spokesperson was talking about that Congress is politicizing. If we are talking about business, let BJP spokesperson explain why Prime Minister does not talk on the trade deficit or the trade gap which we are having with respect to the trade with Russia, number one. Number two, as far as politics is concerned, why Prime Minister, while addressing the Indian diaspora, why does he want to demean the earlier Indian governments before 2014? He did the same thing which he did in South Korea or Shanghai, where he said कि 2014 से पहले लोगों को शर्म आती थी विदेश में ये कहने के लिए कि मेरा जन्म भारत में हुआ है. Similar thing he has done over here. The entire speech of Narendra Modi in Russia was mere rhetorics, and it was meant to enhance his PR, his TRP and headline management. Now these rhetorics don't work all the time. He has been doing rhetoric since last 10 years. So you talk about trade, you have not spoken about trade, you have not given a roadmap about the future trade with Russia. So many things are lacking behind. Prime Minister should concentrate on business with Russia. We are not against that, but we are against the kind of politics Prime Minister is doing against their own Indians or the Indian government before 2014, and the way he's trying to create a situation that it is only Modi who's doing everything. There's no Modi magic in this. This is a time-tested partnership.
We had a time-tested relationship with the Soviet Union going back to the 50s when Pandit Nehru was Prime Minister. In the 1971 Bangladesh War, the Russians sent an armed frigate to keep the Americans out of the Indian Ocean waters. You even have in 1993 when Russia became a sovereign country after the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Indo-Russia Friendship and Peace Agreement was signed when Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister. So Mr. Modi is only continuing. In fact, the strategic dialogue for which Prime Minister Modi has gone to Russia for the last couple of days was started in 2001 when Mr. Vajpayee was Prime Minister. So he's only continuing a relationship that has been at play since India became an independent country. So why denigrate previous prime ministers, whether it's Pandit Nehru or Indira Gandhi or Narasimha Rao, because they were the ones who started this foundational relationship with Russia.
Even he has denigrated even Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Morarji Desai.
Let RP Singh respond.
Sapra Sahab, I expected today that you will greet 140 crore Indians for the getting highest civilian award, Prime Minister Modi getting the highest civilian award from the Russia. That was the least expected, and I intentionally didn't mention it. I thought probably you will do that as this award for the all 140 crore Indians, including you and me, including Zaka, and including diplomat police also. But that's how the Congress is. That's the problem with the Congress. I mean, they think no. That's the Prime Minister Modi is not the he's not the Prime Minister of the country. He's the Prime Minister of the BJP probably. There's the problem with them, and they have not still accepted him as a Prime Minister even after he has got a clean mandate and got a mandate to govern this country and to work for this country. But that point aside, there are tactical things which are happening, which is that in spite of the war with Ukraine, in spite of that West putting all that taboos on Russia, and still we are on with the relationship with Russia. We are buying oil, and that oil is being used here and is being used even to balance the oil prices worldwide also. So at times you have to look for in a bigger gambit, not with a...
No, his point is, RP Saab, that out of the $65 billion of trade you're doing with Russia, 60 billion is oil imports that India has imported from Russia. The balance of trade is heavily stacked in Russia's favor. That is his contention.
I'm saying that, Rajaka, I'm answering that. Please, I'm answering that.
Zaka, can I mention one more point?
1 second, let him finish. Yeah.
Also that there's a relationship between India and Russia in context to China also. So it's not intendingly everything is with trade. There are much more things happening more than trade. There are much more in relationship than only trade. How much balance is there or how much imbalance is there? There's a smaller thing. Then maintaining a balance of the power. That's more important. And then we know what sort of relationship we have with China, and that's why it's very important to keep that relationship with China, with Russia in comfort. One. Secondly, sir,
Zaka, I have one question in mind.
Yeah, one second. RP Singh finish and then I'll come to you, Sapra Sahab. Yeah.
You with your relationship with Aam Aadmi Party has started indulging into ruckus politics. Please, sir. So also that what happened in Sharm el-Sheikh? I mean, if you want me to talk about the foreign policy, what happened when we had 90,000 plus soldiers with us, and we could have immediately got Gurdwara Kartarpur Sahib, or much more than that. I mean, our army was there till Lahore. We could have done much more than that. We came under pressure of the US that time, and then we succumbed to the pressure. Although Bangladesh was stated, but we succumbed to the pressure of US. But here today, we are at the equal terms with Russia and US and other Western powers also.
Okay.
Keeping in mind our interest, the Indian interest. That's the foremost.
Prime Minister last month after his election victory first went to Italy. He met with all the G7 leaders, including President Biden, Mr. Trudeau, Giorgia Meloni, all of them, the leaders of the Western world as they are. And now in Russia, the next month, he's met with President Putin. Isn't that a sign, Mr. Sapra, of the fact that India has strategic autonomy? It decides who its friends are, and it can have one friend without offending another.
See, Zaka, amidst all this, we should not forget that there are important issues with regard to Russia. 50 Indian people have been duped and they have been admitted into the Russian army, and around 4 people have got killed. This is a major issue which Prime Minister should have addressed while he was addressing the
today
Indian diaspora over there.
It has been clarified. It has been clarified by top government sources that Russia has given an assurance to India that the remaining 40 Indians who are part of the Russian army will be discharged. They will be sent back to India.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Zaka, whatever you're talking on the basis of sources. I'm saying why the Prime Minister himself did not mention this. Why he thought that this is not worth mentioning to the Indian diaspora or to the media over there.
Okay.
This is a major issue of India. And secondly, when the BJP spokesperson was talking about the earlier issue, let me give you one example. The BJP wants to sit in the driver's seat. They want to drive the car in the driver's seat, but they want to look in the rear mirror. They want to talk about all the past things. You can't drive a car by sitting in a driver's seat and looking in the rear mirror. You will definitely go with the accident.
I want to go to Dr. Zigon and also the Ukrainian representative. Dr. Zigon, you know, the problem is India, while on the one hand is trying to maintain strategic autonomy, it is showing the world that it can have very healthy and strong ties with the West, America, Europe, etc. And at the same time, it can have a strong relationship with Russia, as has been evidenced in these last 2 days. The problem for India is also that at the core of it, this war, this invasion of Ukraine, strikes at the very principles of the UN Charter, which was outlined by the Ukrainian guest, which is territorial integrity, sovereignty, etc. And India has its own problems vis-a-vis China. We've had for the last 4 years an ongoing situation at the border where clearly China has infringed into Indian territorial integrity and sovereignty. Soldiers have died for it. Today we have an active hot border with China, which we never had before 4 years ago. So India, and the worry for India is, as Russia grows closer to the Beijing axis, to the China axis, in fact, Mr. Putin and Mr. Xi, I believe, have met some 6 times since this war began. The worry for India is it cannot allow Russia to go into the Chinese corner.
Absolutely. I think that's a correct issue to be discussed. First of all, we should avoid any attempt to slice the geopolitical map in favor of one side or another. The world, today's world, is extremely complex. If one party raises its voice in favor for international law, balance, etc., the other party should remember that it should be followed the very same way. Second of all, India truly has all the ground to be concerned about a close strategic relationship between Moscow and Beijing. That's the fact. And definitely the visit of Sri Narendra Modi to Moscow is aimed at underlining a balance in this triangle, because it's a crucial, vital national interest of India to sustain a good strategic and even more than privileged strategic relationship with Russia. And Russia, in its turn, is interested in counterbalancing its geopolitical basket of interest between Delhi and Beijing. And I think it's in favor of both parties.
All right. Mr. Marechko, and then after that, Ambassador Puri, I'll give him the final word. But Mr. Marechko, Ukraine is up against the wall on this one. It's also up against the clock. Because from Vladimir Putin's point of view, it's very clear if he holds on for another 3 or 4 months, there will be a change of guard in America. Mr. Trump will become president. Mr. Trump has publicly said that he will cut off any kind of funding from the United States to Ukraine, that he wants to have nothing to do with Ukraine's war effort. And then you're pretty much on your own. And then Putin knows that that's all he needs to do. He just needs to bide out time till November. So you're really running up against the clock.
No, we are not, because first of all, we don't know who will be elected American president. Second, Mr. Trump, as a candidate, he very clearly said that he doesn't agree with the conditions put forward by Putin, who is a war criminal. And thirdly, we have strong support of bipartisan support of both Democrats and Republicans. And we also have support of our European partners, which provide us with very substantial economic and military aid.
Okay. Ambassador Puri, so how does this play out and how does India safeguard its interests, particularly in the near term? There is, of course, a lot of tumult in the Western world. You have a new Labour government in Britain. You will likely have a left-wing alliance in France. Many are saying, the polls are definitely saying, that Trump will beat Biden in the November election. How does India ensure that its own strategic interests are guarded in the run-up to these tumultuous events that we're expecting in the next few months?
Absolutely important. And I think that's the real point. India is now the world's largest country. 5th largest economy, on its way to becoming the 3rd largest economy. This visit, what does it do? One, of course, it allows us to show that we have strategic autonomy. We will do what is in our interest and we are multi-aligned. Secondly, it does show to the world India's coming of age on the global stage. After all, if that was not the case, so much would not be made out by the Western media on India going for a relationship which is old, time-tested, etc. Thirdly, it's very important, and you rightly said so, that in this visit, perhaps unsaid in the public domain, we did speak to them about China, this whole business of the Russians and the Chinese going in one corner, but letting them know that here is your old trusted friendship, a friendship with a strong partnership. Please don't go into any kind of Chinese lean in terms of the India-China affair and what it means for all of that. And fourthly, the very important issue of bilateral partnerships, whether it is oil, and let's be very clear, India's import of oil from Russia was good for Russia, it was good for India, and really speaking, it was good for the Western world because the price at their pumps didn't jump up by double or whatever else that you're talking about. Nuclear cooperation. And let me draw attention to something else. Nuclear has been a bad word for several years. But as we look towards curbing greenhouse gas emissions, trying to move away from fossil fuels, away from coal, we have to look at hydrocarbons, green hydrogen. We must also try and look at nuclear, where perhaps India and Russia can contribute something. So all in all, a visit that was important strategically, and it provided the right signals for India coming onto the global stage and its importance.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. Like I said, strategic autonomy has been demonstrated in the last month or so. First at the G7, where the Prime Minister met with all the heads of the Western world, from the President of America, the Prime Minister of Britain, the President of France, etc. And now, within a month, he's gone and met the President of Russia. Of course, India has to look out for its own interests, and that is what the Prime Minister has done. And as far as this political attack is concerned, that India should not be seen as doing business with someone who is at the head of a genocide or attacking children's hospitals in Ukraine. Well, like I said, India has done business with Saddam Hussein and with Muammar Gaddafi and with the likes of the military junta in Myanmar. There is geopolitics, there is geostrategy, and that should never be hostage to what is domestic political point scoring, as it were.